seriously into the thing.
Hello everyone and welcome to Coffee Chat. Although this is less of a coffee chat and more of a breaking news chat, today my guests are Mayor Brian Hedley and CAO Colleen Synchyshyn, talking about a new land purchase done by the town. The news was released just today.
Yeah.
So just give me the basics on that. What have we done?
Well, I guess Colleen can talk a little bit more about dates and details and that, but just from a higher level, we purchased 320 acres of pretty much farmland, and we're looking at the fact that the community needs to grow, and as we've looked at that situation, we've come to a point the last few years where we're starting to hear a few more people talking about not being able to purchase land the same, and so we decided, I'm not sure how long ago, when did we talk about doing that housing study, and maybe you can talk about it a little bit, Colleen.
The housing study was actually triggered last year. So we completed that and then followed that up with a housing strategy. So we more recently in December of this last year and then into January, February actually concluded that with the final presentations to the council. And what we needed to know from those studies, and especially when you're trying to apply for funding for grants, it doesn't matter what you're applying for, you need some science behind what you need to do and why you need to do it. So even though we'd been talking for a few years, kind of, just high level stuff that we need to purchase more land because the CN was getting all used up insofar as residential purposes, we said, where do we go next? So the housing study and strategy basically pointed us in the right direction to say, to have where we need to be in 2028, which is only 4 years away. We needed 460 houses, and that's based on a continued growth in Neepawa, but very modest now, about roughly 17%.
Yeah.
But I think it was also the fact there was a backup. There's a backlog.
There is,
Right.
absolutely.
We know there's a lot of people that are in need of housing.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the point now where we can't really stack anybody anymore in housing, and of course the safety issues that you have when they are, residing in the same residences that maybe aren't, set up for egress. We'd hate to have a fire happen. So we said we're going to decide how we're going to purchase some land. So early in the year, we sent letters out to everybody that had land in and around Neepawa, and not necessarily for us to purchase it, but we wanted to know, looking at short-term and long-term, were they firstly interested in developing their property? Would they do it themselves? If they did, would it be a 5-year program, a 10-year program, a 20? What kind of assistance, that kind of thing. But also to give us an idea of where we needed to invest in sewer and water and roads, so that if, say in 5 years, somebody wanted to development, how would we be able to capitalize on spending our monies and putting that infrastructure in the ground? So we're very fortunate out of the gate. The first few that came back to us and the ones we purchased from basically all said, yeah, we're not developers, but we sure would sell you some land. The map was laid out, the star was pointed on the map, and we said, I think somebody's given us a message that we need to move forward and make these purchases. So.
And one of the other things I think we're seeing in town is, with our sort of being at capacity for housing, we're getting the more duplexes, we're getting things like that that are sort of stressing the areas in town. With this new area, are we able to build, into the fourplexes, apartments, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we're going to do a community plan and kind of design up something a little bit different. We have to look at lot sizes. We have to look at different types of housing, and we're looking at single dwellings, but we're also looking at apartment blocks and that. We know that the way we've designed things in the past, sometimes some of the single dwelling houses are just not affordable for people. And so we want to kind of relook at the way housing has been done for the last 100 years and see if we can't improve on that and come up with some new ideas. And what those are, right now we're just tossing around a number of different ideas, but certainly I think if you look around in the cities, within the province here, there's been a lot of changes the last number of years on how they view housing as well, and to just like build a single dwelling for $400,000 now. People just can't do
Yeah,
that. So.
no. And we certainly have some idea of what the demographics of the community are, where these people are working, what an affordable range would be.
Yeah, that's right. Even, you know, as close as Brandon, we've seen some new strategies within Brandon, and seem to be working very successfully. So this will be new to people. It'll be different, but times are changing.
So let's look at the specific location now where we're talking about. It was on the front page of the paper this week.
Yeah.
We have a diagram here as well showing. So in this yellow area here, that is the new 320 you said?
Yeah.
320 acres there. You'll see there also in red, that is the previous property, the CN property, which was for about around 42 acres. So it's certainly a huge area of land there, just on the east side of number 5.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that within the town boundaries, or is that are some of the land purchases moving out into where we had, I believe, North Cypress Langford is over there?
Yeah, some of it definitely is outside, and but I guess we were looking at the fact, okay, how, if we're going to do something, how do we set things up for the next 40, 50 years, and what are we going to need? And so we looked at that. If you look, Colleen, when did was it 2014 was the CN property? Is that when?
Well, it spanned a number of years, actually. It went back into a few councils previous where the purchase of the land, and the application for subdivision actually went in around 2017. It took 3 years to actually conclude that subdivision. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
And partly due to the complexities of the land we were dealing with, being it was rail property before, there was numerous leases that were involved, trying to close those all up and consolidate them into a single piece of land that we could subdivide. At that time, they did also a concept plan working with consultants to determine the highest and best use of that property, which, as you know, included, room for a fire hall, room for an RCMP building at the time, which was not disclosed. It was also kept reasonably secret at the time because we were working with the federal government and the province of Manitoba on that one.
And you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so to get all of these pieces to, check the boxes and tick into place at the right appropriate time, it was a very large project. So a similar fashion will happen now. We'll look at doing an architectural concept plan for this area, and probably doing some community consultations, I'm going to guess, to see what the community needs. And that could mean reaching out to other agencies or organizations that can't expand where they are and perhaps need to. We're also understanding that, as we grow, is there still further need for more schools? Like, we want to make sure we've set aside land for institutional purposes, for industrial purposes, for commercial purposes.
Daycare spaces are huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at that from a big perspective and making sure that all those players that come to the table, the stakeholders have their say.
So does this actually then expand the boundaries of the town, or is that a whole other process that you would have to go through to?
That's different. That's totally different. So even though there are some acreages of this particular purchase involved in that, in North Cypress Langford, that's not on the plate, right?
Okay.
The immediate plate anyway for any discussion. But I suppose that does open a door for when we do install services into a neighboring municipality. We would, invite the partners to the table to discuss what that means.
Right, because certainly a lot of infrastructure is now going to be needed to be going into that area.
Yeah. And
is it serviced right now, or to what degree?
No.
Okay.
No, and that's one of the things that holds back development is, putting in water, sewer, streets, lighting. Like it's, we came to realize that if we didn't move forward with this, it's almost got to the point that it's just, it's a huge risk for an individual or a single company to try and take something on. So that's kind of pushed us that we have to be a little bit more aggressive on doing things, or we're going to get left in the dust and we won't have any place for people. And like you said, as it is right now, like we know some people have looked elsewhere from Neepawa. Partly for housing, but partly for daycare as well. So we've got to get that changed. Like that's kind of desperate right now.
And one of the things about that property as well is that the rail line does go either through or right by that one. So are there opportunities there then for more commercial, more industrial development alongside some of this
Absolutely.
housing?
We have in the past had different industries come to us, and whether they were considering Neepawa or not, they go out, they reach out to see who has firstly a labor market, and we do have that. Then they look at the amenities such as your location to transportation lines, whether you're traveling by truck, whether you're going by air, whether you're going by rail, and of course that rail line would create a very nice scenario for somebody that needed to access rail transportation.
Yeah.
So we understand that. So it's not a big secret, but we are going to proceed with a zoning amendment on a piece of property that would at least put it into industrial use at this point, the piece that would be north of the rail that is in the town boundaries, and premise us for having our economic development officer reach out to some of those that have talked to us in the past to see if this is a little more enticing and appealing to them now. So.
And speaking of transportation, that property does butt up against the airport as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right in that kind of same area.
Yeah, that's right.
Not that the airport is very commercial or very in high use, but it is there.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's right. And it depends on what kind of businesses in the future look at Neepawa as to what their requirements are.
Yep.
They may need both rail and air. We don't know.
You don't have so much of a transportation river, but more of a recreational river.
Yeah.
So then what's it going to take to get the infrastructure into this area that's going to be required for this development or for any future development?
Well, first we'll have to start off with our planning. So we'll have to come up with some idea of designs. And it's going to have to be staged. Like we're only going to be able to do a certain amount of area at a time.
Certainly, yeah, that's a huge
Yeah,
property.
and so from there, then Colleen, what goes through with all
So I'm going to propose that the recommendation, and we did talk briefly about this, is going to focus on the 47 acres that are over west of the public works yard. Only because the proximity to services right now there, while it's not at the property line, they are very close.
Right.
In 2014, we also installed a sewer force main up number 5 going north and connecting it to Hurl Road. So that was a significant project at that time to make that area developable.
Yeah.
So once we do that and decide what kind of housing we want in that 47 acres, because I'm going to propose it's probably going to be, the bulk of it will be housing to meet our need. We'll outline where the roads are, making sure that the criteria for widths and servicing it, whether it be garbage or fire or whatever, meets the criteria. And then from there we will get our engineers working on the fact that, how do we design our sewer and water to run through that whole 47 acres. And so it's like one little process after the next.
Kind of modular in that way, one connects to the next, connects to the next. Speaking of the roads as well, I know one of the things that you ran into with the industrial park to the east of town is access off the highway is limited. Is that going to be a concern in this area, or is it already sort of limited access off the highway for that?
We'll have to do traffic studies with highways and that, and through that process, no different than the CN property where that all had to be. There had to be studies on that to get approved.
Close one and open the other.
Yeah, exactly. So this will happen exactly the same with this area as well.
Yeah. And what sort of timelines are we looking at? Because I know all these things take time, but if we're sort of in a need now, what kind of compressed timeline can we kind of look at?
We were at
optimally?
We were at AMM this spring, and talking to, and there was a speaker there, and they were saying the best time to do something like this was yesterday. And the next best time is today. So should we have started this a few years ago? Maybe, but the CN property kind of shocked us a little bit how quickly it filled up. And then Colleen's process now, it's timely.
We've already started.
I imagine there's other things going on in the background that we have no idea about yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it definitely we won't be putting new homes in there next year. So
are we hoping to take some equipment and scratch the dirt in preparation? Because and we may need. You might see some fill being dragged from different places over there, those types of things. So you might see some action. It's going to be very limited, probably this year, next year. But for the understanding, if especially once the hospital opens up, we need to know that we can house people here, or at least give them a short window of promise that they would have a modest wait to get a house. So we need to act very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and between the hospital, the potential of a new school, as we're looking at hopefully more businesses opening up in the community, there has to be places for people to buy houses.
Absolutely.
We welcomed a couple new doctors on Friday. So
Yes, exciting.
So it's do we kind of wish the process had been started a little bit before this? Yes, but it's you can only go along and do as much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things you sort of touched on was, the town owning the land versus another developer purchasing land. So what are really the advantages of the town having control over or having purchased this land rather than having it just sort of available to other people to purchase and develop?
Well, I think the big thing, like I said, is infrastructure is difficult for people, but at the same time, it's not going to be like we're going to come up with areas in that, but it's not going to be us building this.
No,
like
absolutely
that,
not.
The whole idea for us was to make sure that we could secure land and help to get it going with infrastructure. That's the big benefit because now we can be doing that right now and getting going. Otherwise, we're waiting for developers to come along and do theirs.
Right.
And what happens if they're more land speculators than they are developers, and
Right.
the land sits. So this way, we're guaranteeing ourselves that we can keep moving forward on this.
And that's sort of, I think, a very big deal when we're, again, so pressed for space and for housing. And for, as we said, that's for childcare and for some industrial and things like that. So certainly it's, instead of saying to, this might be for sale, we can say this is where it is, this is how big it is, this is how much it costs.
And it's serviced technically.
And it's serviced, and this is taken care of, here's your road, here's your,
Yep.
here's the guy you talk to for a permit. Done.
And maybe Colleen talk a little bit about the reserve, how we were able to do this.
So in 2019, and I should premise, before there was a reserve there, but it was a little more generic reserve set aside for development type potential, but never
Right.
for the idea of necessarily being for the purchase of land. That wasn't a strong thought of the council at the time. So in 2019, we said we need a reserve that is very specific to addressing our growth in Neepawa. So we created the Building and Land Reserve. And in that reserve, the monies that went in were quite often surpluses from a year-end budget. And then, of course, through those one-time grants we received from the province of Manitoba, especially last year, which were very much welcomed, we were able to push those monies into that particular reserve so that we knew when we pulled the trigger on buying some land, we did not have to have the taxpayers fund that.
Yeah.
So the money was sitting there. We fully funded the whole thing right through that reserve.
It's not financed, it's completely
No,
paid for.
and there's still a little bit of money sitting in there, and that particular fund will allow us now to build infrastructure for that growth and development. It is not allowed to be used, though, for the purposes of existing roads, existing infrastructure. It is exactly for growing your base.
Right.
So we'll start out with a little bit of money in there, and of course we'll spend it for creating these studies and all these documents. We'll need a drainage plan, we'll need a traffic impact study. Everything costs a little money. Eventually you'll need some milers from the surveyor and some survey work done, and so similar to the CN property, what we did, the tactics we used there was a cost recovery basis for that, so that when we used our own labor, of course, you can do it cheaper by using town labor to do that, rather than, flesh it all out to a particular contractor, it costs more. So in the end, when we sold those lots and all the properties over there, we were able to come up with either a square footage basis for those that are commercial, or a lot price basis on a cost recovery. There was no burden of debt to the town taxpayers again on that property, because all of the sales funded the debt that was existing or the expenditures.
Yeah.
So did we have to carry those expenses in the short term? We did. But then the money start coming back in, and that reserve, the purpose of that reserve is to take our growth and develop, whether it be expenses or revenues, and try and net them all back through that reserve and not burden the town with any extra cost.
And if you notice what Colleen said, the reserve couldn't be used for existing roads and that. So right off the bat, first thing today was the first question I got is why wouldn't you spend that money on the roads and the potholes in town? And so
Legally
part of
you
the
could
answer
not.
answer is the reserve couldn't be used for that. And but a bigger problem is the fact that like with this warm winter, with the freeze thaw, we had worse streets and everywhere in Manitoba that we've had for years. And so, yeah, we had to get out and start fixing those, which we did by renting that machine and getting on top of things. But we still have a couple of streets in town that we're going to be paving. But we had to change the budget, move $300,000 from other projects to move over here to do some additional streets.
Yeah.
Now the problem is even if we could go and do all the streets, it's not. You can pave the street, but you have to change the water and sewer underneath there, because what's the sense of having a nice freshly paved street for these ones are 150, 160,000 when you turn around and you have a break in the winter and now you dig it up.
Dig it up again.
Opposed to what our strategy has been is to dig out the whole street, upgrade the water and sewer, redo the base, redo the curbs and gutters and that. And that's at a cost of $350,000, $400,000. So
Per block.
per block, yeah. So it's not an easy fix, and anybody that says it is absolutely dead wrong, because we live in a 120-year-old town, or 120, 100, whatever it is, and that infrastructure.
And some of those pipes have been there for just about that long.
Yeah,
so
and we are lucky that we are in a sandier soil, because that has helped us to a certain degree. But no, to go and just pave the streets in town here isn't going to work. It won't work.
And there's certain monies that you can move around in a budget, and there's some that you just simply cannot.
Right, and every year we are increasing the amount that we're spending on streets and sidewalks in the community every single year. So if you go back 10 years ago, we're spending a lot more money. Yeah. But this new tax base from this new area is going to help
fund all of that.
It's going to help fund it.
People will have their own homes. They won't have a lot of what do they call mother-in-law suites and things like that. And
well, if you look,
although those aren't a bad thing either.
We that is one thing that we've looked at some different cities in Canada that has that, and is that something maybe we should be promoting? We don't know. We need to look at that as well.
And as far as the budget goes, that is, I believe it's on the website. If it's not, it's certainly anyone can look at that.
Oh yeah.
Just ask the town.
And we desperately invite people to come out every year to it. And
there is every year. I do. There's a budget presentation, and they go through everything. You can ask any questions.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really kind of lays out, and you really get a sense of what the priorities of the town are, what things actually cost to run, to do.
Yeah, and you see our pie there with all slices and transportation, all the different areas and that. And the pie is only this big.
Yeah.
And if you want it to get this bigger, then taxes are going to increase substantially. So
or you grow your base.
Build more houses, right? And
So this is the strategy we're taking. I guess 50 years from now, they'll be able to tell us whether we were right or not. Hopefully we're both still here. But yeah, we think we're excited about this. We think this is the right direction for the community.
It was certainly exciting news when I heard about it, and wanted to get you and talk to you right away about it to see, what the plan is, what the short term, what the long term, and are there any other lands available then if we need to do this again 10 years from now, or?
I suppose that's the next guy's worry.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong two people.
Let's worry about this one first, and then worry. Yeah. But certainly, I mean, the boundaries of the town, you're sort of limited to a certain degree on what is available within town. Yeah,
for years we've said, look, we don't own land.
Yeah.
And now we do.
And now you do.
Yeah.
Excellent. So just so you know, this new land as well, and our mayor mentioned that we're not developers. That's not the idea. We want to prep it up, but there will be opportunity because we do get reach outs quite often from developers who are looking for a piece or perhaps lots that, here's just like we did in the CN. They might buy 6 lots, they might buy 10 and develop, the housing on that, whatever. We're pretty much open to anybody that wants to approach us now and explain what their vision would do and how their ideas would fit in with what we're planning for a scope.
Developers welcome.
Oh, absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
And
fact-
now it's kind of a one-stop shop. You go
Yeah.
in and
Just this morning alone, we've already had a few that have knocked on our door before and said, "I'd like to set a meeting up, come back to talk to you." So, yeah,
there's
it's
a lot
been
of
good.
opportunities opening up here.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts from you guys on this?
Not a whole lot, I guess. Upcoming, we changed Canada Day to July 20th. so
Yes.
maybe
Please
if
note
you
that.
can
Yeah.
talk about that, the raft is
Raft.
raft is on, and
Raft is on
Margaret
July
Lawrence.
20th.
Margaret
Margaret
Lawrence.
Lawrence Home is doing their Art in the Garden tour. So there's going to be live music, fireworks, live art demonstrations, fiber arts demonstrations. And someone's got to have a spinning wheel up,
Oh, they're
all sorts of
fabulous.
gardens.
Yeah.
So all that's happening on July 20th now. So we've kind of just folded Canada Day into a sort of a townwide festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which will be nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank both of you for making time for me today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
bet.
And thank all of you for joining us. We will see you again next time.